Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for staying with us. And I'll come to you, Tope. You've been traveling around the country, meeting people, being interviewed by the press. What are they saying to you and about you? I mean, are people quite clear of your identity politics and what you stand for?
Oh yes, I thank God. You know, thankfully, I think I have one of the most resounding rhetoric of the lot. Actually, you know, I mean that's the truth.
Well, you would say that.
Yeah, I would say that about myself. but the truth is also that I mean I've always been about the debate and you know getting to talk about the hard facts. You know, beyond personality and so the reception has been great. The reception has been great. We can only build on that. This weekend I'm going to be in Katsina State. We'll come back to Kano, Kaduna, you know, and then go down to the east and so on. However, the best we can do is probably to ensure we touch every state. We probably will not be able to go to every local government or every village. There are about 60,000 villages in Nigeria. 60,000 villages. If you look at it, about 10,000 wards in Nigeria. Each ward is about 6 villages on the average. You know, so perhaps more than that. You know, how much money do you have? Again, of course, Nigerians always, you know, want, oh, what can you do for us? And you'd actually be unconscionable to get to some kind of environment in Nigeria and not give them something because you see the kind of conditions that people live in. And this is an international issue for us. And that's the reason why we're not playing at the level of taking a state. Right, because the problem with Nigeria is not at the state level, but at the national level. The kind of visioning we should have for every Nigerian. By now, we should be talking about setting a certain minimum standard of living for our people. Now, no matter where you are, as a Nigerian, there are some things you should not be doing. There are some things you should be doing. Since independence in 1960 in this country, for example, there's never been one plan for housing at the rural level. The best we have is, okay, you have all these houses built in Lagos, Jakonde houses, 2-bedroom flat, 3-bedroom flat for workers in the civil service. And however, those people who live in the villages are also Nigerians. So we leave them and they're there to build their mud houses, to build it in a very haphazard manner. There's no input from the state. There's no rural planning. No rural planning. There's nothing like, okay, if you want to build your house in the village, this is what you should do. People just build everywhere. And then, you know, and then the first with environmental disasters and all sorts, you know. So this is the areas where we're coming in. So people would actually want you to say, I mean, oh, what can you do for us? Okay, we've got problems. Okay, I mean, I get a lot of that.
And they've got immediate problems.
They've got immediate problems.
You're telling them what you might be able to
do. So
but they're saying, right, show us what you can do right now.
Exactly. So in politics,
before you actually win the election.
In politics in a country like Nigeria, you wouldn't go far if you weren't generous.
Right.
However, you also got to be careful because, hey, this is a business that you get into, you actually will break the bank and spend everything you have, you know. But again, for me, I don't mind doing that because it's going to be for a bigger cause. Okay, but I tell them, I'm on the street demonstrating that 6 trillion naira should be added to our national budget. And not only that, we want to know what you're budgeting for.
But if you're doing...
And I think that's a bigger cause than giving 2,000 naira to someone.
Yeah, but if you're doing that, I mean, if you're going to give that 2,000 naira, it places you instantly in competition with the parties that can give a lot more money. Because as Dr. Vitalis was saying, that the politicians have consciously impoverished the people
you know, so
in order to keep them in hock
the politicians. None of us at my level can win that war. But what I tell them is this. The normal thing is to say, listen, it's your money, you take it, right? But then again, I also I've developed another rhetoric to say, you know, that you've been taking this money for years now. 4 years ago you took it, now you're taking it. 4 years hence you're going to take it. But look at it, you're still living in the same condition. So it's seeming like this money is not quite kosher. It can be cost. So I tell them, listen, pray over the money. So you see, we need to begin to put doubts in their mind, to tell them that there's something with this money that you're collecting that hasn't improved your life. And it's seeming like it's a generational cause because your children are lining up also to collect the same money.
Well, there was a story.
What they believe is what we must use, all right, to get to their minds. And listen, there's probably a curse on this money. Because again, of course, we've seen it done. You know, I mean, people going to shrines and swearing. People can go to a shrine and say, listen, this 50 million, don't spend it on yourself. You have to spend it to the people, and everything bad that should happen to you happens to them, you know. So they sit down and you see people filing up and they're giving them 500 naira to 1,000 naira, you know. I mean, again, it's demeaning, but again, it's a major issue.
Yeah, but you're doing it as well.
We're not doing it.
Well, you said that you give them something.
The way it will work is this: if you get to a place where they can't even find water to drink, you'll be unconscionable and stupid for you to just go there and blow all the grammar and tell them what you do when you become president. If you had 5,000 naira, give to the village chief and move on.
Right. Okay. I'm going to have to take this to somebody else.
And let it be, let it be open. Let it be open.
Right.
You knock their heads together. If the guy cheats them, okay, that's
well,
it.
there was a story that somebody told me about politics in Nigeria. He said that they came to this village, and there was this guy, a bit like you, Tope, who's saying a lot of lofty things and standing on a pedestal, and some other guy was on the other side of it, and the chief of the village was simply sitting down listening to all that. After a minute, he called one of his aides and says, those bags of rice that we see there, who brought them? He said, the other guy. He said, vote for him, and walked out.
And walked away.
And that seems to sort of underscore Nigerian politics.
Let me quickly chip in that what we're
very
doing,
quickly,
what we're doing, yes, sir, what we're doing is that in spite of Nigerians, Nigeria must change, right? In spite of the level of poverty. You see, so what we're doing, you know, no matter how they say we're blowing grammar and all of that, we must blow the grammar so that it gets better for everybody, whether they understand it or not. Because there's a way they've been conditioned over time, and they become impervious to the suffering, the sheer suffering, and the sheer lack. And we're saying that internationally it is unacceptable, and Nigeria has actually embarrassed itself, and now is the time to salvage this country.
Okay, I'm going to move on to you, Dr. Vitalis Ajumba. In imparting lessons to the new parties, how big a struggle was it for APGA to win over voters, the sort of thing that Tope was talking about, and to explain to them where you stand as an alternative to the APC and the PDP?
You know, APGA started his journey to success from P2B. He did well. Of course, you know how he won and how the victory was taken from him, and he went to court and eventually became the governor. He started his work, followed his manifesto, because he now went to the people, not dashing out money to the bourgeoisie, and use that money we were giving to bourgeoisie to do work, to do the job at Anambra. 2 days ago, yesterday when I was coming to Abuja, I flew in the same aircraft with P2B, His Excellency P2B. Do you know where he sat? At the economy.
He's a remarkable man in that sense. Yes.
To save money, probably. Or maybe that is his way of life. When he was a governor, he was not used to going to the VIP to sit. He was not used to go using the business class. Very simple. It's a part of saving money. But the governors we have now are very flamboyant.
Yeah, but then P2B left your party. I mean, there must have been a reason why he left and moved on.
That could be. That could be. No.
Sorry?
That could be an internal problem between him and probably his successor. I don't know.
Well, what I'm saying is that your party clearly failed in some sense because he left your party and moved on to somewhere else.
He left after being the governor.
Right.
That has nothing to do with whatever he achieved as a governor. And the current governor is also doing well, starting from the successes of P2B and doing better than P2B. And that is APGA. Now, I pity my friend, Tope, and Moano. They speak big grammar. That is not what the hungry man at the streets need at the moment. There came a time in my village, one rich man, a young man came to him and needed his blessing to be a counselor, to represent him. This guy happened to be a man of God, a born-again Christian. So he brought a carton of beer, a carton of wine, non-alcoholic wine, and gave to the man to seek for his blessing. So His Excellency asked him, "You are the son of this person?" He said, "Yes." I heard you are, is it pastor or reverend? He said, "Pastor." So, okay. He said, "Gentleman, it is not yet time for God's children." I don't think
it's not yet time for God's children.
It's not yet time for God's children. They are telling him not to run. that what is in politics is beyond being a born again. So what is in politics now is beyond.
Doctor, but you guys have not changed.
Let me tell you. I know you are doing a very good job.
And this country needs to change.
Now, you are doing a very good job trying to change the people. But the people you want to change are hungry. And that's the instrument, this big name. Okay, that's your part, ANRP. If you bring one big name in APC or one big name in PDP and to be the presidential candidate, you know, the thing will change. The big money will come. And you see everybody trying to buy tickets, trying to buy the form to be either a governor or whatever in ANRP.
Yeah, right.
Because they know that that's where the money is flowing. Yeah, now, right. What people are now interested in is where is this money coming from? Because they will assume that politicians are the same. If you vote them in, they also go there and do the same thing.
Particularly the hungry ones,
the hungry
who will need to get there and enrich themselves.
Unfortunately, the hungry ones are greater in number, and they are in majority. The elites like this are just about 10% of the. You are about 10% in the voter population, but the majority are those who are impoverished.
That's just a very brief response from you, and then I have to come to the professor.
It's a very important. Look, it's the stuff that a thesis should be written upon. To say, when you have a situation like this, what do you do? The bottom line is the country needs to move on, in spite of the fact that the people have been nailed to the ground. And that is where the so-called elite who blow grammar come in. Because you must keep blowing this grammar.
Yes, I think Tope is right, you know, because you can't just say that, you know, okay, it's going to be more of the same every day.
Exactly,
somebody's got to start making that change.
Nigeria is so vulnerable now. Yeah. Nigeria is so vulnerable. Look, if the world went crazy and we had a third world war, countries like Niger, Republic, Cameroon, or Benin will defeat this country because
I want to ask him.
One more thing, sir. To say that, listen, the dream we're selling is that the rich of this country can get richer. They don't understand.
Tope.
And the middle class can grow a lot larger. But that, you see, the trick is in those people who have been nailed down by poverty. They need to be lifted. When you lift them up mentally, not only in terms of putting money in their hands, 13 million children on the street. With the problem like that, in two lifetimes, this country has been mortgaged.
Just a minute.
13.2 million children who are going to have children of their own.
Somebody else has to speak.
Just a minute. Sorry, sir. You started this crusade very late. And I want you to continue this crusade by 2023. You will see a change. Okay. Why must this crusade be only? Why must this crusade only be during the election? Immediately after the election, everybody relax and wait for the next.
Yeah, that's a good point. But Tope did say that he's become more of an activist.
Yes, so continue.
And that sort of goes beyond just elections. But Professor Ibrahim. Can politics, just listening to what you're hearing here, can politics ever change enough in Nigeria where smaller parties and interest groups are more powerful and better able to explain their message to voters, particularly to young people who might be interested in certain issues? I mean, can these parties become part of the mainstream where they become the main opposition to both the APC and the PDP? Because at the moment they're not, let's face it.
You know, in political science literature in Nigeria, the most spectacular conclusion we have reached about Nigerian politics of the Fourth Republic is the failure of political parties to engage with Nigerians on what they stand for. To illustrate this, take the Second Republic. Nigerians understood the PRP was the party of the Talakawa, and that it was taking positions against what it considered feudalism in northern Nigeria.
So there was some ideology.
Yeah. The UPN said education is the key value they want to offer Nigerians. The MPN was focusing on things like housing. So it was easy for people to say, now, this is the party I identify with.
That's a good point.
Today, I spent the last couple of days reading the various platforms of the parties. They're very comprehensive. They're very well written. a lot of it looks like the work done by consultants.
But they all sound the same.
Fasua, who is a consultant, would have written his own because he does that anyway. So I'm saying, when I've read this, and at the end, I ask myself, what are they trying to do? All of them, for instance, talk of producing millions of jobs.
Yes.
But they don't tell you how they will produce those millions of jobs. And I know, as somebody who studied politics for a long time, that it's easy to promise heaven to everybody. But how are you going to produce what you are promising? So I think there's a real failure in terms of political parties. It is precisely because of that. So
that's not limited to the bigger or the smaller parties. It's all the parties, right?
So with this failure of the political parties, the voter is not stupid. He listens to these people, and what does the voter determine? They all seem to be saying the same thing. I'll give you this, I'll give you this, I'll give you this. The voter then makes the conclusion that, well, they're saying the same thing, they're making the same promises. What additional inducement should make me determine who my vote goes for? So the voter then reflects and takes a number of considerations.
One of which is purely material.
One of which could be material, who will give me more money, but it could also be part of our identity politics. Well, at least this one is from my ethnic group or from my religion. So even if they are all promising the same thing, I have some...
I'm much more likely to trust this person than the other. Right.
So the voters are acting in a very intelligent manner. They are actually analyzing what's being said and taking positions. Looking forward, really, the responsibility of our political parties is to try to be much more concrete in terms of what I will focus on terms of what my strategy is. So when the PRP said we are for the Talakawa, what was the first thing they did? They stopped poll tax, they stopped cattle tax, and that alleviated that particular group from what they considered to be oppressive policy measures. So what is really important, and I got quite confused by the time I read the platforms of the APC and PDP, they're very, very similar in terms of the offer. There are some differences in terms of one being more liberal and the other being more state-oriented. So there are some differences. But in terms of...
for example, when you look at the PDP's thing, they talked quite a lot about selling off things like the NNPC
the national assets.
And all the...
they want to sell off the national assets.
So to that extent, there's a marginal difference.
There is a marginal difference. And I think Nigerians would notice that marginal difference because I think a lot of Nigerians have a clear position on what should happen or not happen to our national assets. So I think the point I really wanted to make is that as we engage in these campaign promises, there are two key questions citizens should ask all the contestants. We don't have unlimited sums of money. We don't have vast resources. You've promised too much. Which ones are you serious about? And how are you going to deliver about the ones you are serious about? So we have to reduce those beautifully written campaign platforms to much more practical approaches in terms of how do we move forward from where we are and what is your focus, what's your emphasis?
Well, let me put that question to Tope Fasua, who's of course a politician. He belongs to a new party, and he's trying to make inroads into the sort of the world of the electorate. We're now officially in the campaign season. What will your campaign strategy be? How are you going to communicate these things? Because you have all these lofty ideas. But how are you going to translate it, as the professor was saying, into practical policy?
Well, but basically, when you're campaigning, you have to speak in the language of those you're campaigning to. As a matter of fact, one thing I've always said about, especially at the presidential level in this country, is that ordinarily speaking, I remember there was a time in the United States that said any leader who cannot speak Spanish in the next 15, 20 years cannot be the president of the United States. I've seen scenarios here where people go to their own people, for example, their own quote and unquote tribe, and then they speak English. So to a large extent, you must try and communicate in the language that people can understand. If you're speaking with it, there's absolutely nothing wrong. If you can speak Igbo and you went to Southeast Nigeria and you speak Igbo to them, absolutely nothing wrong. And we've seen the idea that, you know, sometimes people get so excited when they know, oh, this guy can speak our language now, so we need polyglots, you know. Now, apart from that, now, I wanted to take Professor Jibrin on because he hasn't read our platform. He hasn't read our manifesto. He read these two guys. And these guys have employed, policy consultants because they can afford them. One of the things that makes my own platform, our own platform in NRP unique, for example, we're talking about how do you fix infrastructure, rather than to say we're going to borrow $1 trillion from God knows where and then pump the money in the system with all the wastage involved. We're saying that we're going to ensure that the students in polytechnics and universities are the ones that are going to do the infrastructure building all over the country, and we can incentivize them by paying them some money. And by doing that, they're going to make their mistakes, but by the time they're leaving university, they have something on their CV. And then they become employable. Because now we've seen a scenario where we've borrowed a lot of money, companies have come here from abroad to do infrastructure, and then they tell you, sorry, we have to bring our people from abroad.
Yeah, but hopefully you're not going to leave all the infrastructure building to people who don't really know how to build infrastructure.
But however,
and are learning on the job.
No, you've got to own your development.
Right.
That's the part that we've missed in this country. If civil engineering students should start out by doing roads in their school, and then outside, little roads should be done by the students of this country.
That's a good point.
Equally, electrical engineering should fix our problem, and even people who read history.
Okay.
A couple of days back, they said some of our languages are disappearing. Who's going to do that? Who's going to collect them? So students of history, students of sociology, anthropology.
Okay. Well, that's a good point. I'm afraid I have to.
Those can also be their project. They can be assessed on that.
I have to interrupt you there because we're virtually out of time.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Vitalis, I'll give you the final word. Some have suggested that the ambitions, and I think we heard it here earlier, of some of these new parties is quite simply too stratospheric. I mean, they're reaching much higher than they really ought to. I mean, you know, Tope Fasua is a presidential candidate, that perhaps they should concentrate on local government, state assemblies, that by fielding presidential candidates, they're perhaps aiming too high. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, my advice to them is to start the way Abga started. If you jump up, that you are going too far. Concentrate on a state. Try to get a state. From there, you build their base and go up. And to make people think the way Tope thinks, education is the key.
So he's right on that score.
Yeah, the more people who are educated will think the way you think. But unfortunately, our education is down here in Nigeria. So how many years do you think will produce people who will think the way you think? So that is it. Education is wealth. If you're well educated, that certain kind of money that's been given to you, you say you don't need it.
Okay. On that note, I'm afraid I'm really sorry, Tope, but we're totally out of time. Tope Fasua, presidential candidate for the Abundant Nigerian Renewal Party. Dr. Vitalis Ajumba, campaign strategist, political advisor, and member of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, and of course Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, senior fellow, Center for Democracy and Development here in Abuja. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, to all of you. Well, that's it for this edition of Nigeria, The Road to 2019. Join us again tomorrow for a fresh edition. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.